What's up, guys? This is the Gospel according to Mark with a C. He is I and I am he. Just taking some time to tell you exactly what's on my mind. And I want to give a big, fat, happy Father's Day shout out to everybody out there. All the fathers, all the people who have fathers, all the mentors, all the stepfathers, all the role models, even the ones who don't know that people are watching you. You know, that's very important, guys. We never do see everyone who is watching us. So to all the men out there who may not be fathers, who are getting up every day, who are working hard, who are sacrificing, who are going well out of their way to be the best model person that they can be, although we're all imperfect, I give you all a shout out because you never know whose life you might be changing just by being who you are. So don't let Father's Day just be about, you know, those of us who are actually fathers. There are a lot of men out there who are in that fatherly role who might not even know that they are. So big old shout out to you guys, man. It's so important that we acknowledge each other, especially these days in this toxic masculinity crap that we're living in. You know, I just want to salute you all. So guys, while I'm giving you this message, I also want to point something out to you because I had kind of a revelation earlier. And you know, when you think about Star Wars and you know, the fandom, it's very important because the people who are opposing the fandom right now, the ones who are trying to infiltrate what we love and trying to redefine it, and who are trying to actually make separations in the fandom, you know, those of us who have been around long enough and who actually love this thing, we know that Star Wars has always been all-inclusive. You know, so for people to come in here now and try to say, we need more women, we need more minorities, we need more homosexuality, it's like they don't realize, and they don't care to realize, that we've always been all-inclusive. You know, we never drew those lines. And I want to just share my own personal experience with Star Wars. For example, Luke Skywalker. You know, now according to these SJWs today, they would say that a guy like me or a kid like me back when I was growing up shouldn't have been as emotionally invested in identifying with Luke the way that I did because he's a so-called white male. But you know something, I swear to you, when I was growing up, I never perceived Luke Skywalker as just a white male. He was a hero to me and he was a role model to me. He was imperfect, but I can tell you guys, on this Father's Day, when I knew that I loved Luke Skywalker more than words can say. And that would be probably at the end of The Empire Strikes Back, when Luke found out that Darth Vader was his father. You know, and it was the worst thing that could ever happen to him. Darth Vader was a monster, he was a beast, you know, he was killing people, and Luke found out. And when he screamed, no, it's not true, you know what I mean? It's not possible. It's like so many of us felt his pain, you know, his anguish, because we don't get to choose our parents, you know what I mean? So in that moment that you as a real person start to look at your parents, start to look at your father, and you start to see the imperfect being that he is, you know, especially men, because men are just so unsung, you know what I mean? There are so many men out here who just don't get the acknowledgement because, I mean, there's just so many different ways to be if you're a man and all that. And it seems like the worst of men get acknowledged and get celebrated, especially in the black community, guys. You know, when you talk about how black people relate to Star Wars and the black, you know, people who might be in the fandom, it's like there's a very special connection to that complicated relationship that Luke has with his father, because unfortunately so many of us in the black community have that issue, you know, sons and fathers, you know, fathers who became fathers under really messed up circumstances, who don't always embrace the idea of fatherhood, even though they are good but deeply flawed men, you know. So when Luke finds out that Darth Vader is his father, you know, somebody who is just evil to him and everything, it just brings up such you know, such anguish and you know, and such pain and disillusionment. And I remember for me, you know, there was that connection, you know, where I'm thinking to myself, I had a complicated relationship with my father, you know what I mean? It's like, and that resentment came before the greater understanding that he is me and I am him, as I like to say, you know what I mean? I hope I'm making sense. But yeah, so that came first. You know, this man is my father. And my father was always a good man. You know, he was a police officer in New York. And he grew up in Marcy Projects in Brooklyn. You know, they used to call him Slim back in the days, you know what I mean? But he was very emotionally unattached. You know, he was very emotionally unavailable, you know, to me, my brother, and my sister. Even though, you know, we always had that connection. We always loved him and everything. But, you know, he was kind of a hard ass, you know what I mean? And he didn't always express himself so well, you know, so we had kind of a rocky relationship. So, you know, when I became self-realized and I'm growing up and everything and I'm looking at my father, he's not there for me, you know, he's not there to go out and play ball with, and, you know, he's not the kind of father who's going to give you hugs and say, I love you. And, you know, then he and my mom got into their problems. They got divorced, and, you know, everybody chose up sides and everything. So my father played the villain in our family for a long time, and it wasn't fair, but I can only say that now in retrospect. But back then, he was the villain, you know what I mean? He was Darth Vader. And as I got older, you know, and I'm growing up with Star Wars, Luke, unexpectedly, in Return of the Jedi, sensed good in his father. You know what I mean? And this is where I might, guys, bear with me. Hopefully I don't get emotional here, but around that time, you know, I started looking at my father and wondering, you know, is there good in him? You know what I mean? And if I had to be honest with myself, I was starting to see the humanity in him, you know, where he was deeply flawed and everything, but there was so much of him that was in me, you know what I mean? And I saw in my brother and my sister, and it's like I really started to feel it, you know what I mean? Like, could I save my father? And in saving my father, would it save me? You know what I mean? Because it was really twisting me up, because I had people telling me when I was growing up that black men ain't shit, you know, I'm going to be just like him. I couldn't be a good father because I didn't have one to be there for me. And, you know, so it was rough, but I started looking at things differently because of what I saw Luke Skywalker go through, you know what I mean? So it's like, for all these people who say that Star Wars is just white boys and, you know, in their mother's basement and fanboys and stuff like that, I say, fuck that, that's bullshit. It's like, I know the way I grew up and I know what I got from this, you know what I mean? So it's like, that was a defining moment in my life, you know, when I realized that it's not out of the range of power for a son to be able to save his father. You know what I mean? Because the world does some crazy things to men. And I'm talking about all men at this point, because now we see what's going on, you know, with the whole talk of toxic masculinity and the Me Too movement. All that stuff, okay, I do understand that. But what I'm saying is that the world, when it spends more time fixating on the negative of men and not celebrating all of the billions of positive contributions of men, you're doing a disservice to children who are growing up, to young boys who are growing up. And I needed that when I was growing up, because this is what took my father out. This is what twisted him out. And this is what twisted his father out. And there comes a time when you have to say, I'm going to break that cycle. And when my son was born, you know, and I knew that my wife was pregnant, I remember thinking to myself, you know, at first I thought I wanted a daughter, but then when we found out I was having a son, it did something to me, you know? It made me realize that I'm gonna get a shot to break the cycle between father and son, you know? And when I saw that, when I look back on Luke Skywalker, when Luke says, there's good in you, I can feel it, I have to save you, I realized that this is real. That dynamic is real. It's like, what happened to previous generations of men? We can change, we can stop. As sons, we can actually reach back and see ourselves in our fathers, in our grandfathers. Then we have to say, there's good in you. I can feel it. I can save you. And at the least possible time, you'd be surprised when you can bring them back. You know, just like with Luke Skywalker, he was on his way out. You know, the Emperor was killing him. And something connected, you know, with Darth Vader. It turned out that Luke was right. There was still good in Anakin. After all of the things that he did, after all of the slaughtering of younglings, yes, I said younglings, after the slaughtering of younglings, after, you know, like betraying the Jedi Order, Anakin came back because of the tie between father and son. And this is what I'm talking about, guys. You know, so I got that bit of inspiration when I was thinking about that. And when my son was born and I held him in my arms, I said, this is it, man. This is it. I won't fail him. I won't ever fail him. And it's all because of what I was inspired by when I saw the Star Wars saga. You know what I mean? That really played a huge part in the way that I perceive things between fathers and sons, and even fathers and daughters. Just the institution of fatherhood. You know what I mean? Look to our fathers, no matter how complicated our situations may be. I know people who had complicated relationships with their fathers, and their fathers have passed away, and only then did they realize, like the song says, the living years are so important. You know what I mean? It's not the time for fighting, it's not the time for resentment, but you have to be honest with yourself, guys. I mean, if he's like an axe murderer or something like that, and he's not showing any remorse for it, it's like you really have to search your feelings. Like they say in the movie, search your feelings, you know it to be true. Now, if you search your feelings and you just know this dude is he's just no good. Excuse me, he's just no good. Well then, he's just no good. But even then, challenge yourself to break that cycle. Like I said before, in my case, I opened my heart to my father, even though, like I said, we had that rough relationship. I love him in the name of my brother who has passed away, and I know that he feels very deeply. I'm talking about my father, about the relationship that he had with my brother and I and my sister, especially since my brother passed away, because there's just so much like finality to that. You know what I mean? You can't get back any of those years, and my brother reached out to him more than I ever did, because my brother is his namesake. He's named after him, and he went into the same business. My brother was a cop too. He was a detective. And with me, it was just more like, whatever, I don't need him, but I knew deep down, you always need your father, you know what I mean? So, when I can say that I love you to my father and he can say it back, I know that it takes a lot of effort on both of our parts, but it's very, very important, and when I see my son, I see his grandson say pop pop, and he doesn't feel any of that resentment because he doesn't know any of that. You know what I mean? He wasn't there when I was growing up, obviously. So the new generation deserves better. So that's my message, guys. I don't want to go on and on about this, but I just want us all to know, don't let another day go by. You know what I mean? If you're a father, if you have a father, and that goes to men and women, alike, search your feelings. If there's good in him, and you know that there's good in him, you don't have to chase him around. You don't have to, beat your head against a brick wall. But open up your heart, and you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised to learn that you can bring him home sometimes. The same way that Luke Skywalker brought Anakin home. Bring him home. And happy Father's Day to everybody out there. Like, share, subscribe. You can catch me on Twitter. And I will see you guys on the next one. Enjoy your day. This is the Gospel According to Mark with a C. I hope all of this made sense. Rock on.